Welcome back, everybody. For those that don't know, my name is Justin at Crest Coast Tattoo. So, this is the dedicated liner Ambition Ninja full stroke machine. As you see, I'm using my 7-round liner, outlining everything a little bit. Because one thing for sure, outlines, you can always depend on them. Doing straight shading and you don't know how to do straight realism, it definitely will have your piece falling apart. So, outlines definitely will help hold your piece together. And sometimes I decide to do outlines so I wanted to pop out, make it look more illustrative and not more realistic. I'll add bold outlines and I'll come back in the inside and shade it in more realistically. So that's kind of a mixture of illustrative and realism. Alright, let's go ahead and clean the piece a little bit. And I decided to skip the 7-round liner because it's a small piece. So let's say go with the straight in without 15 flat mag. Shaded in, and I was able to get into those little grooves. I didn't really need the 7. And that's one thing I'll say, you could also take shortcuts by doing that. Once you get comfortable, if you don't really need to use the small needle, you can go straight to the big needle if there is enough space. But if it's not enough space, definitely go in with that smaller needle that fits until you get comfortable, until you know how to angle your needle, stuff like that, to get in those tight corners. And right now for those edges, I definitely pull back out my liner. Like I said, you want them edges to be real sharp. Even the eyelashes, I use that liner on to try to capture them eyelashes at the bottom. And that's one thing I recommend to any beginner starting out. Start out with hard outlines and then work on getting your shade. That's why I always tell everybody, practice your line work. If you want to start off with tattooing, practice your line work. That's the foundation of any tattoo. Until you grow to that point to where you don't need lines and you can only use your shades to try to get that realistic approach. Just like in this tattoo, the outlines of the triangle is definitely going to be bold outline, but that inside of the triangle, like the eye and everything, I made sure I kept it realistic. I try to go with straight shades, no hard outlines. And that alone will give the piece that realistic feel. Even though it got bold outlines on the outside, it will give it that realistic. And that's what you want if that's what you're going for. But if you're going for a traditional piece like tattooing bold lines, then that's what you do. Focus on your line work. That's it. Also with traditional work, I know it's super bold, flat colors. Unless you're doing neo-traditional, they mixing colors, getting the more smoother, things like that, showing more depth. And this is another thing that come with experience that you'll learn over time, that tattoos, at least 10% of your tattoo gonna fall out once it heal. That's why you always gotta make up for those tones, make them a slight bit darker. But starting out, do it regular, and as you'll see over time that once some tattoos heal up, you'll have to touch it up, darken up some things. But most cases, some people don't want to touch them up, especially because of the pain. That's why I say try to get it all knocked out one go, as long as they can take the pain, because most people, they're not trying to come back and get it touched up. Sorry. And throughout this whole tattoo, the only place I really used pure black was in the pupil of the eye and on the eyebrow. And I mean black shading, that is. Of course, the outlines is pure black. So black shading wise, just was the eyebrow, the pupil in the eye, maybe some darks along the edges of the triangle. And don't know if you all can tell, but I did decide to go with the outline for the eye and the eyeball. And as I got around that eye, I definitely recommend switching over to that 7 curve mag because it get a little tight around that eye, which is also what I did the eyebrow with 7 curve mag to make sure they're real bold. Of course, it ain't gonna be black like a line, but we want that to be soft with shade. So I decided as I moved up, I was gonna soften things up a little bit. So as we started getting to the top, I said, you know what, that last little wind flow at the top, I'm not going to put hard outlines around. I decided to straight go in with the 15 curve mag and softly outline it like with a dark shade, not a black, a dark shade, because I want it to be soft. So when she ever add on to this piece, it won't be hard to add on. It'll be just something soft that could flow into whatever she decide to add on to it. Even though I know most people don't be having a backup idea what they're going to add to the piece, it just come to them. So I just try to make sure I leave room that it can always add on to the piece and it's not going to look weird. So that's why I try to make the piece not look cut off, because I know eventually they may add something onto it. You make it look cut off, then that will put the client in a tight situation of how and what they could possibly add. So the main goal I said I was going for here was bold outlines, kind of minimal shading, not real detail shading, but I'll say a little minimal shading. To once it heal, they definitely will be able to see this from a distance. Like I always say, this is not a race. Stay patient, stay focused, take your time. You're gonna get there. Your time is coming. And always, before you are done, take your pictures, look over it, zoom in, whatever you need to do, so you could go back, tighten it up. That's why I'm getting some gloves out right now. I'm about to go back, tighten something up. You're gonna always find something.